What happened after I told my roommate about her boyfriend's assault arrest shocked me. I found out my roommate's boyfriend had been arrested for assault on a random Tuesday night, while sitting on my bed in sweatpants, eating cold leftovers and half watching a true crime video. That sentence alone still doesn't feel real. I didn't go looking for it. I wasn't snooping, or stalking, or trying to dig up dirt. I wasn't suspicious of him in that way. He wasn't that guy. Not to me. Not to anyone, really. Which is why what I found made my stomach drop so hard I actually thought I might throw up. Let me rewind. I was living with my roommate, Claire, in a 2-bedroom apartment we'd found through a mutual friend. We weren't best friends, but we got along. She was bubbly, emotional, always falling hard in relationships. I was quieter, more observant, the kind of person who notices things but doesn't always say them out loud. Claire started dating Evan about 6 months after we moved in. At first, he seemed fine, more than fine, actually, charming, funny, the kind of guy who remembered your coffee order after meeting you once. He cooked dinner, fixed the leaky sink, brought wine when he came over. My friends liked him, my mom liked him, I liked him. That's important. I liked him. So when his name popped up on my screen that night, it felt like a glitch in reality. I was scrolling through a local news site because a headline about a bar fight caught my eye. It was dumb curiosity. Then I clicked the article. Then I scanned the names. And there it was. His name. Not similar. Not close. Exact. My heart started pounding immediately, the way it does when your body knows something is wrong before your brain can catch up. I told myself it had to be a coincidence. People share names all the time. I almost closed the tab. But then I saw the mugshot. Same crooked smile. Same eyebrows. Same scar near his hairline that Claire once kissed and joked about. My hands went numb. The article was short, clinical, no dramatic language, just facts. Arrested for felony assault. Prior incident involving a former partner. Charges pending. Former partner. I read that line over and over until the words stopped looking real. I didn't breathe for a full minute. I sat there staring at my phone, my brain trying desperately to rearrange reality into something safer, something that made sense. This couldn't be the same Evan who brought us donuts on Sundays. This couldn't be the guy who held Claire when she cried about work. This couldn't be the person who said, "I'd never hurt anyone." But it was. I knew it was. Because once you see something like that, your body reacts before logic gets a vote. I felt sick. I closed the article, then reopened it. Clicked through to the court record. Same date of birth. Same city. No escape hatch. I remember whispering out loud, "Oh my God," like saying it quietly might undo it. I didn't tell Claire that night. I didn't sleep much either. I lay in bed listening to the sounds of the apartment, her door opening, her laughing softly on the phone. Evan's voice drifting through the wall when he came over. Every sound felt different now. Sharper. He came over the next evening like nothing had changed, greeted me like always, asked how my day was, smiled at me. I smiled back. And I hated myself for it. I kept thinking, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it was self-defense. Maybe it was years ago and he changed. I wanted so badly for it to not be my problem. But the thing that kept echoing in my head was this. If this were me, I'd want to know. That thought followed me everywhere for the next 3 days. To work. To the grocery store. Into the shower. Every time I looked at Claire, I felt like I was holding something heavy and sharp behind my back, something that could hurt her, or save her, or both. She was happy, glowing, talking about a weekend trip they were planning. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way Evan corrected her mid-sentence. The way she checked his face before disagreeing. The way he'd get quiet instead of angry, which somehow felt worse. Were those red flags? Or was my brain rewriting the past to justify what I knew now? I didn't know. All I knew was that the longer I stayed silent, the worse I felt. On the 4th night, I finally decided. I was going to tell her. Not dramatically. Not accusingly. Just honestly. I rehearsed it in my head 100 times. I found something and I think you should see it. I'm not judging you. I'm just concerned. I didn't mean to find this, but I couldn't ignore it. My hands were shaking when I knocked on her door. She opened it smiling. "What's up?" she asked. And in that moment standing there, about to shatter her version of reality, I truly believed telling her would end everything. I thought she'd thank me. I thought she'd be angry at him. I thought the truth would be enough. I was wrong. I had no idea how wrong I was. Claire let me into her room, still smiling, totally unaware that I was about to drop something into her life that couldn't be picked back up. "What's going on?" she asked, sitting cross-legged on her bed. "You look serious." I sat on her desk chair and immediately stood back up because I couldn't get comfortable. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. "I found something," I said, "and I don't know how else to say this, so I'm just going to say it." She tilted her head, concerned now. "Okay." I took a breath. I came across a news article about Evan, about an arrest. Her face changed instantly. Not shock. Not confusion. Something else. "What kind of arrest?" she asked carefully. That was my first warning sign, and I ignored it. "For assault," I said quietly. "There's a court record, too. It says it involved a former partner." The room went completely still. Claire stared at me for a long moment, then laughed once, short, sharp, defensive. "You Googled him," she said. "I didn't mean to," I replied quickly. "I wasn't looking for anything about him. It just his name came up and—" "So you did look him up?" she interrupted, her tone hardening. "That's really invasive." I felt myself shrink. "I know how it sounds. If it were me, I'd want to know." She stood up abruptly. "You don't know the whole story." "I know," I said. "That's why I wanted to tell you, not decide anything for you." She crossed her arms. "This is from years ago." I blinked. "What?" "Years ago," she repeated. "Before me." My stomach twisted. "You knew?" She looked away. "Not like all of it. He told me there was a misunderstanding, that his ex was unstable, that it got exaggerated." There it was. The script. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Claire, it's a felony charge." "And it didn't stick," she snapped. "People get accused of things all the time." I felt like the floor was tilting. "I'm not accusing him. I'm just worried about you." "Well, don't be," she said sharply. "I'm fine." The words sounded rehearsed. I reached for my phone. "I can show you the article." "No," she said immediately. Too quickly. "I don't want to see it." That scared me more than anything else. "Why not?" I asked softly. She stared at me, eyes glassy now. "Because you're trying to ruin this." That hurt. "I'm not," I said. "I care about you." "If you cared about me," she said, her voice shaking, "you wouldn't bring this up when you know I'm finally happy." I opened my mouth, then closed it again. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. "I just thought you deserved all the information," I said quietly. She shook her head. "You don't understand him like I do." I had to bite my tongue to keep from saying neither did his ex. Instead, I said, "I don't need to understand him. I just need to know you're safe." That did it. She laughed bitterly. "You're acting like he's dangerous." I didn't answer. She took my silence as an accusation. "You think I'm stupid," she said. "You think I'd stay with someone who'd hurt me." "I don't think that," I said quickly. "I think people can be manipulated. I think love makes things blurry." Her eyes flashed. "So now I'm weak?" "No," I said. "Human." She shook her head, pacing now. "You don't get it. You're single. You've never had anyone fight for you the way he does." That sentence made my skin crawl. "I'm not trying to fight you," I said. "I just couldn't live with myself if I didn't tell you." She stopped pacing and looked at me. Really looked at me, like she was seeing me for the first time. "You need to stay out of my relationship," she said coldly. The room felt smaller. "I live here," I said. "And I'm asking you," she replied, "to drop this. Do not tell anyone else. Not my friends. Not your friends. No one." There it was. The request that turns a warning into a burden. I hesitated. "Claire." She stepped closer. "Please, you don't know what you're doing." I saw fear then. Real fear. Not of him, of losing him. "Okay," I said slowly. "I won't tell anyone else." Her shoulders dropped in relief. "Thank you," she said, softer now. "I knew you'd understand." But I didn't. Not really. I left her room feeling like I'd done something wrong, even though every part of me knew I hadn't. That night, Evan came over. I could hear them laughing in the living room. Normal laughter. Comfortable. The kind that makes you feel crazy for questioning anything. When he saw me, he smiled. But this time, there was something else in his eyes. Awareness. Not anger. Not fear. Calculation. "Hey," he said casually. "Claire tells me you're worried about me." My stomach dropped. "I just wanted to make sure everyone felt safe," I said carefully. He nodded slowly. "That's thoughtful of you." It didn't sound like a compliment. From that night on, the apartment felt different. Claire stopped telling me things. Stopped asking my opinion. Stopped leaving her door open. And Evan? He was suddenly always there. Sitting too close. Listening too carefully. Watching me in a way that made my skin itch. I started locking my bedroom door at night. And for the first time since moving in, I wondered if telling the truth had actually made things worse. But even then, lying awake in the dark, heart racing, I knew one thing for sure. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And whatever happened next, silence was no longer an option. The apartment started to feel like it was shrinking. That's the only way I can describe it. Same walls, same furniture, same creaky hallway floorboard that always squeaked at 2 a.m. But now every room felt tighter, like the air itself was paying attention. Claire stopped being Claire around me. She used to talk constantly about work drama, about Evan, about nothing at all. Now she answered in one-word replies. She avoided eye contact. If I walked into the kitchen, she'd suddenly remember something in her room and disappear. At first, I told myself she just needed time. Then I started noticing Evan. Really noticing him. The way he'd show up unannounced more often. The way he'd stay late, too late. The way he suddenly knew my schedule. "Oh, you're home early," he said one afternoon, smiling like it was nothing. "I switched shifts," I replied, my stomach tightening. I hadn't told anyone that. He nodded slowly, like he was filing it away. The worst part wasn't anything overt. He never yelled, never threatened, never did anything I could point to and say, "See? That's the problem." It was subtler than that. He'd sit in the living room when I was there and scroll on his phone in complete silence. He'd correct Claire in front of me. He'd make comments like, "People love to misunderstand situations they weren't part of." Always with a smile. I started replaying old moments in my head. The time he slammed the cabinet door after an argument and laughed it off. The way Claire apologized first, even when she was crying. How she'd cancel plans suddenly because Evan had a bad day. At the time, I'd thought it was just relationship stuff, normal couple friction. Now, everything felt different. Like my brain was highlighting things I'd been trained to ignore. One night, I came home late and heard raised voices through the door. Not shouting, controlled, sharp, the kind that cuts more than it explodes. I paused outside, keys in my hand, heart pounding. "I told you not to talk about it," Evan said. "I didn't," Claire replied quickly. "I swear." "Then why does she look at me like that?" My chest tightened. "She's just concerned," Claire said. "She doesn't understand." "Neither do you," he snapped. Silence. Then softer. Too soft. "I'm trying to protect us." I walked in right after that. They jumped apart like kids caught doing something wrong. "Hey," Claire said too brightly. "We were just talking." Evan smiled at me. "All good here." I nodded, pretending my hands weren't shaking. That night, I locked my door and pushed my dresser in front of it. Not because I thought he'd break in, but because I needed the illusion of control. I started staying out later. Sitting in my car, scrolling on my phone, not wanting to walk inside. I'd text friends just to hear another voice. I thought about telling someone. Anyone. But Claire's words echoed in my head. "Please, you don't know what you're doing." I worried that if I pushed too hard, I'd isolate her further, that I'd become the enemy instead of the lifeline. I worried I'd make it worse. That's how these situations trap you. You start thinking responsibility means silence. One afternoon, Claire knocked on my door. I opened it cautiously. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her shoulders slumped in a way I hadn't seen before. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded and let her in. She sat on my bed, twisting her hands together. "He's been stressed," she said immediately. My stomach sank. "Work stuff," she continued. "And everything with you finding that article, it really freaked him out." "I didn't mean to." "I know," she interrupted. "I know you think you were helping. Think. But you don't see him when it's just us," she said. "You don't see how sweet he can be, how apologetic." "Apologetic for what?" I swallowed the question. "He says he's scared people will judge him forever for something that doesn't define him," she added. "And honestly, I get that." I chose my words carefully. "Claire, has he ever scared you?" Her head snapped up. "No." Too fast. Then she hesitated. "I mean, he gets intense, but he never means to, and he always feels terrible afterward." Afterward. That word lodged itself in my chest. "Intensity isn't the same as care," I said softly. Her eyes filled with tears. "You're making him sound like a monster." "I'm not," I said. "I'm trying to understand why you're shrinking." She froze. "I'm not shrinking," she whispered. But her voice trembled. "You don't talk to your friends anymore," I said gently. "You walk on eggshells. You keep apologizing for things that aren't your fault." She shook her head. "You're projecting." Maybe. But as she stood up to leave, she said something that confirmed my worst fear. "He said if you keep looking at him like that, he doesn't know how much longer he can be here." My heart dropped. "Is that a threat?" I asked quietly. She looked horrified. "No, he just feels unwelcome." Unwelcome. In the apartment I paid half the rent for. After she left, I sat on my bed staring at the wall. This wasn't about convincing her anymore. This was about safety. Mine. And hers. I finally admitted the truth I'd been avoiding. Telling her had been the right thing. But it hadn't been enough. Because the most dangerous part of situations like this isn't the arrest record. It's the way reality gets rewritten around it. And if I stayed silent now, if I backed down to keep the peace, I'd be helping rewrite it too. That night, I opened my laptop and started researching how to break a lease. Just in case. Not because I wanted to abandon her, but because I was starting to understand something terrifying. You can care about someone deeply, and still need to get out alive. I didn't sleep much after that. Every sound in the apartment felt amplified: the hum of the fridge, footsteps in the hallway, the click of Evan's lighter on the balcony at midnight. I kept my phone charged and my door locked, telling myself I was being dramatic while my body refused to relax. The next morning, Claire texted me from the living room even though we were 10 feet apart. "Can we reset? I don't want this to be weird." I stared at the message for a long time. I wanted the reset too. I wanted my old roommate back, the one who borrowed my clothes and left handwritten notes on the fridge. So I said yes. We sat at the kitchen table with coffee between us like a peace offering. "I've been thinking," she said, eyes fixed on her mug. "Maybe I didn't explain things well." "Okay," I said carefully. She took a breath. "Evan told me about the arrest early on. Like, before we even became official." My stomach dropped. "You told me you barely knew," I said. "I said I didn't know all of it," she corrected, a little too quickly. "There's more context." "What kind of context?" I asked. She looked up at me, eyes pleading. He says his ex lied, that she was volatile, that the police were biased, that he was protecting himself. I waited. And you believed him? She nodded. I still do. The room felt suddenly colder. Claire, I said, why didn't you tell me you already knew? Because I knew how you'd react, she said. You're cautious. You judge things. That stung. I'm not judging you. I'm worried. She rubbed her temples. He told me people always jump to conclusions, that if anyone found out, they'd try to take everything away from him. And that makes it okay to hide it from me? I asked. She hesitated, then said something that made my chest tighten. He said it would be safer if fewer people knew. Safer for who? I stood up. Claire, listen to yourself. She stood too, defensive. You don't understand what it's like to love someone everyone else is against. I thought about the way he watched me now, the way he corrected her, the way she apologized for him. I understand what it's like to be convinced you're the exception, I said quietly. Her eyes flashed. You think I'm lying to myself? I think you're protecting a story because the alternative is terrifying, I said. I think you're carrying something that isn't yours to carry. She shook her head, tears spilling. You're making me choose. No, I said. He is. That's when the door opened. Evan walked in, keys jangling, like he'd been waiting for the moment. Hey, he said easily. Everything okay? Claire wiped her cheeks quickly. We're just talking. He looked at me, really looked. About me? I didn't answer. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I hear you're worried. I am, I said, about both of you. He nodded, slow and deliberate. I get why this would be confusing. Records don't tell the whole story. Sometimes they tell enough, I replied. The temperature in the room shifted. Claire stepped closer to him without realizing it. You know, he said softly, it's hard to rebuild your life when people won't let the past go. Then be honest about it, I said. His jaw tightened for a fraction of a second. Honesty is complicated. That's convenient, I said. Claire snapped, stop. She turned to me, shaking. Please, just stop. I felt something crack, not anger, not fear, acceptance. This isn't a conversation I can keep having, I said. I need boundaries. Evan's smile returned. Great, boundaries are healthy. But his eyes told a different story. After that, things escalated quietly. My mug went missing and reappeared cracked. My laundry was accidentally moved. Evan started showing up during my showers, during my calls, during moments that used to be private. Nothing overt, everything deniable. One night, Claire knocked on my door again. She looked wrecked. He says you hate him, she whispered. He says it's making him spiral. I don't hate him, I said. I'm afraid of what happens when people stop being believed. She covered her face. He said if this keeps up, he might leave. I took a breath. And what do you want? She looked at me like I'd asked the wrong question. I want it to stop, she said. I want things to be normal. Normal doesn't come back by pretending, I said gently. She shook her head. If you just stayed out of it. There it was. The blame sliding into place. I told you because I care, I said. I won't apologize for that. She didn't respond. She just stood there, torn between two realities, neither of which she wanted to face. After she left, I sat on my bed and realized the twist I'd been circling for days. Claire didn't just know about the arrest. She'd already decided who to believe. And it wasn't the facts. It wasn't the record. It wasn't even her own fear. It was him. That night, I packed an overnight bag and left it by the door. Not to punish her. Not to escalate. But because the apartment had stopped feeling like a home and started feeling like a test of how much I was willing to tolerate to keep the peace. I wasn't willing anymore. And the scariest part? I knew that when I finally left, it wouldn't just change our living situation. It would change our friendship. Maybe forever. But staying would change something in me I didn't want to lose. And that felt like a line I couldn't cross. I moved my overnight bag into my car the next morning and didn't tell Claire. Not because I wanted to sneak away, but because every time I opened my mouth around her lately, I felt like I was stepping into quicksand. The more I tried to explain myself, the deeper I sank. I told myself it was temporary. Just a few nights at a friend's place. Space to think. Space to breathe. I texted Claire a simple message from the driveway. I'm staying with a friend for a few days. I need some space. She didn't respond. I drove away with my chest tight, checking my mirrors like I was being followed, even though I knew that was probably my anxiety talking. Still, my hands stayed clenched on the steering wheel until I reached my friend's place and locked the door behind me. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. That should have told me everything. The next few days were strange and disorienting. Claire didn't text. Evan didn't text. Mutual friends didn't text. It felt like I'd fallen off the map. I replayed everything constantly, wondering if I should have said things differently, softer, later. Not at all. The guilt came in waves. What if I really did make things worse? What if I pushed her closer to him? What if staying quiet would have kept the peace? Those thoughts were loud. But so was another one. What if staying quiet would have taught me to ignore my own instincts forever? On the fourth day, Claire finally texted. We need to talk. My stomach dropped. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our apartment and my friend's place. Public. Neutral. That felt intentional. She looked different. Not just tired, hardened. Like she'd made a decision and was bracing herself to defend it. "I don't think we should live together anymore," she said without preamble. I nodded. "Okay." She blinked, surprised. "You're not going to argue?" "No," I said. "I think you're right." That seemed to unsettle her more than anger would have. "He says this situation isn't healthy," she continued. "The tension, the distrust." I kept my voice steady. "I agree." She stared at her coffee. "You put me in an impossible position." I felt that familiar twist of guilt, but it didn't take over this time. "I told you something because I cared," I said. "What you did with it was your choice." She swallowed. "You don't understand what it's like to have someone who finally sees you." "I do," I said quietly. "I just don't think being seen should require ignoring warning signs." Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed firm. "He's trying. He's in therapy. He's not who he used to be." I didn't argue. I just said, "I hope that's true." That was the moment I knew something had shifted permanently between us. We weren't on opposite sides of an argument. We were living in different realities. "I'll move my stuff out this weekend," I said. "We can work out the lease." She nodded, relief flashing across her face, relief that she didn't have to confront me anymore. As I stood to leave, she said softly, "I wish you hadn't found that article." I paused. "I wish it didn't exist," I replied. I moved out within a week. Packing my room felt surreal, like I was erasing myself from a life that no longer fit. Evan wasn't there when I went back, which I was grateful for. Claire stayed in her room while I loaded boxes into my car. We hugged awkwardly at the end, a long, quiet hug that felt like a goodbye neither of us wanted to name. After I left, the fallout spread outward. Friends asked vague questions. Some stopped inviting me places. Others hinted that I'd overstepped. One person said, "It's not your relationship. You should have stayed out of it." That one hurt, because I hadn't stayed out of it when silence felt like betrayal. Late one night, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, this is Marissa. I used to date Evan." My heart started racing. She continued, "Claire gave me your number. I just wanted to say, thank you. I wish someone had warned me." I stared at the screen, tears blurring the words. We talked for hours. She told me about the temper swings, the apologies, the promises, the way everything was always somehow her fault by the end. "I thought I was crazy," she said. "Hearing you spoke up helped me realize I wasn't." When we hung up, I sat in the dark and cried not out of fear or guilt, but something closer to release. Because for the first time since this all started, I knew something with certainty. Telling Claire hadn't been pointless. It hadn't fixed everything. It hadn't saved her. It hadn't protected me from consequences. But it had broken the silence. And sometimes, that's all you can do. As painful as it was to lose my roommate, my home, and some friendships, I didn't lose myself. And that mattered more than I realized at the beginning. Because if I'd stayed quiet, if I'd chosen comfort over conscience, I don't think I could have lived with that version of me. And the story? It wasn't over yet. But I was finally standing on the right side of it. For a while after I moved out, nothing happened. And that almost messed with me more than if everything had exploded. No dramatic breakup announcement. No police showing up. No late night "you were right" call from Claire. Just silence. I moved into a short-term sublet across town. Smaller room, thin walls, a mattress on the floor. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt safe. I could breathe again. I slept with my door unlocked for the first time in weeks and didn't wake up panicking at every noise. Still, the guilt lingered. It showed up in the quiet moments folding laundry, waiting for the bus, scrolling my phone at night. I'd wonder what Claire was doing. If she was okay. If I'd abandoned her at the worst possible time. That's the trick of situations like this. Even when you do the right thing, you're left holding doubt. A few mutual friends slowly drifted away. No big confrontation. Just fewer replies. Fewer invites. One of them finally said it out loud over drinks. "I think you kind of projected your fears onto her relationship." I nodded and changed the subject. I didn't have the energy to defend myself anymore. Another friend said, "If something bad actually happens, that's on him, not you." She meant it to comfort me. It didn't. Because what if something bad did happen? About 2 months later, I got an email from our old property management company. It was addressed to both of us. Claire had broken the lease early. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, heart racing, imagining worst-case scenarios. Eviction? Violence? Something I should have prevented? I texted her. Me, "Hey, I got an email about the lease. Are you okay?" It took hours for her to respond. Claire, "I'm fine. We moved." We. I didn't ask where. That night, I barely slept. My brain kept looping. What if I made it easier for him to isolate her? What if leaving was exactly what he wanted? The next morning, I got another message, this time from Marissa again. "I don't want to scare you, but you should know something." My heart started pounding. She called me instead of texting. "He was arrested again," she said quietly. Everything went cold. "For what?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer would hurt. "Violation of a restraining order," she said. "Different woman." Not Claire. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed. Marissa continued, I heard through mutuals. I don't know the details, but I wanted you to know you weren't wrong. I closed my eyes. Not wrong. I'd spent months questioning my instincts, my timing, my right to speak. And now, here was confirmation I never wanted but somehow needed. What about Claire? I asked. I don't know, Marissa said gently, but I hope she's okay. After we hung up, I sat there shaking not from fear, but from a rush of emotions I couldn't sort through fast enough. Relief, sadness, anger, and a deep aching grief. Because even being right didn't feel like a win. A week later, Claire texted me out of the blue. Just one line. I should have listened to you. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Are you safe? It took a few minutes. Yes, she wrote. I'm with my sister. I exhaled so hard it felt like my lungs deflated. She didn't go into details. I didn't push. This wasn't about getting closure for me. A few days later, she sent another message. I'm sorry for how I treated you. That one broke me. I cried sitting on my kitchen floor, phone in my hand, feeling the weight of everything finally settle. We talked that night, carefully, gently, like two people walking through the aftermath of a storm, pointing out what was broken without touching it yet. She told me pieces, not everything. How his behavior escalated once I left. How isolation felt different when no one else was around to notice it. How she kept hearing my voice in her head asking, Are you safe? I wasn't ready to hear it then, she said. But you planted the seed. That phrase stuck with me. Because that's the part people don't talk about enough. You can't save someone on your timeline. You can only tell the truth and hope it takes root. After that conversation, I felt something shift again. The guilt loosened its grip. The self-doubt quieted. The question of what if I'd stayed silent finally had an answer. Staying silent wouldn't have protected her. It would have protected him. And I wasn't willing to do that anymore. I don't think speaking up makes you brave. I think it makes you lonely. You lose people. You lose comfort. You lose the illusion that doing the right thing will be rewarded. But you keep something else. Your integrity. Your instincts. Your ability to look back and say, I didn't look away. And in the aftermath of everything that happened, that mattered more than being liked. More than being convenient. More than being quiet. The story didn't end neatly, but it ended honestly. And that was enough. Time did what it always does, it softened the sharpest edges but left the shape of everything intact. Claire and I didn't suddenly become close again. We didn't pick up where we left off or joke about the past like it was some weird detour we'd survived together. What we had now was quieter, more honest, and a little sad. We texted occasionally, check-ins, updates that were careful but real. She moved in with her sister, started therapy, changed her number. She didn't say his name anymore. When she referred to him, it was always that situation or that time. I understood. I was changing too. I noticed it most in how I reacted to people. Before all of this, I was the kind of person who smoothed things over, who gave the benefit of the doubt even when my gut was screaming, who stayed quiet to keep things comfortable. After, I trusted myself more. When a coworker made a joke that crossed a line, I didn't laugh it off. When a friend defended a guy who gave me a bad feeling, I didn't second-guess myself. When someone asked why I moved so suddenly, I told the truth without justifying it. And yeah, some people got uncomfortable. But discomfort stopped feeling like an emergency. One afternoon, months later, I ran into someone from our old friend group at the grocery store. Small talk turned awkward quickly. I heard, "Things worked out," she said carefully. "They did," I replied. She hesitated. "I guess you were right." I shook my head. I wasn't trying to be right. She nodded slowly, like that answer landed somewhere unexpected. Walking back to my car, I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Evan. Not at Claire. Not even at myself. Anger had been replaced by something steadier, clarity. I understood now how easy it is to rewrite reality when the alternative is unbearable, how love can turn into a shield, and how silence can feel safer than truth. I also understood my role better. I wasn't the hero of this story. I wasn't the villain either. I was a witness. Someone who saw something and refused to pretend I hadn't. Claire told me once during one of our longer conversations, "When you told me, I hated you for it, but it stayed with me. Every time something felt off, I remembered you weren't crazy." That mattered more than any apology, because it reframed the whole thing. Speaking up hadn't been about forcing a decision. It had been about planting doubt where certainty was dangerous. I started volunteering at a local hotline not long after. Nothing dramatic, just listening, just being there. I didn't tell anyone why. I didn't need to. It felt right. Some nights, after my shift, I'd sit in my car for a few minutes before driving home, thinking about how many people live inside impossible situations, convinced they're alone. I thought about how close I came to staying quiet. How easy it would have been to tell myself it wasn't my place. How much I would have lost if I had. Claire is doing better now. Not all better. Just better. Which is real. She told me she's learning how to sit with uncertainty, how to rebuild trust with herself, how to listen to the voice inside her that used to get drowned out. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for not listening sooner, she said once. I answered honestly, I don't think beating yourself up helps either of us. We sat in silence after that, comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't demand anything. I don't know what Evan is doing now. I don't check. I don't want to know. That chapter closed when I chose not to carry his secrets. What stayed with me, the part that still hums quietly under everything, is this understanding. You can't control how people receive the truth. You can't time it perfectly. You can't guarantee outcomes. But you can choose not to look away. And sometimes, that choice changes more than you'll ever get to see. The story didn't end with justice or neat conclusions. It ended with people living in the aftermath, learning, unlearning, surviving. And me? I learned that doing the right thing doesn't always feel heroic. Sometimes it just feels lonely, expensive, and necessary. But I'd make the same choice again. Every time. Because the cost of silence is something you don't always see right away. Until one day, you realize it's been quietly taking pieces of you the whole time. And I wasn't willing to pay that price anymore. I used to think stories like this ended with a clear lesson, a headline, a moral you could wrap up and carry around like a warning label. They don't. They end quietly. They end in the space between who you were before and who you're willing to be after. A year passed. Not all at once, not cleanly, just one ordinary day stacked on top of another until the sharpest parts stopped cutting me every time I brushed against them. I moved again, this time into a place that actually felt like mine. Plants by the window, a couch I chose, a door that closed without needing a dresser shoved in front of it. Safety stopped feeling like something I had to earn. Claire and I met once more in person, not to rehash everything, just coffee, neutral ground, sunlight through the windows. She looked stronger, not happy exactly, but present. I think about that night a lot, she said, stirring her drink. The night you told me. I nodded. Me too. I used to replay it and think, if she'd just stayed quiet, none of this would have happened. She paused. Now I realize, if you'd stayed quiet, it still would have happened. I just wouldn't have been ready when it did. That landed heavy. I don't blame you anymore, she added. I blame how hard it is to accept the truth when loving someone feels like survival. We didn't hug when we left. We didn't need to. Some connections don't come back the same, and that's not always a failure. Walking home that day, I realized something that surprised me. I didn't feel responsible for her healing. I cared. I hoped. But I wasn't carrying it anymore. That was new. I think about the 3 days I sat on that information before I told her. The pit in my stomach. The arguments I had with myself. It's not your business. You'll make things worse. You don't know the whole story. Those voices sound reasonable. They always do. But they're the same voices that keep people quiet when quiet benefits the wrong person. If there's anything I wish people understood about situations like this, it's this. Speaking up isn't about being right. It's about refusing to participate in a lie. And lies thrive in comfort. They thrive when everyone agrees not to notice. When politeness matters more than safety. When staying out of it feels easier than living with what you know. I lost things because I spoke up. A home. A friendship as I knew it. The approval of people who preferred silence. I gained things too. Sleep. Trust in myself. The knowledge that when it mattered, I didn't look away. If you're listening to this and you're sitting on information that makes your chest tight, if you're telling yourself it's not your place, I won't tell you what to do. I'll just tell you what I learned. Silence doesn't keep people safe. It keeps things convenient. And convenience has a way of choosing the wrong side. Telling her didn't fix everything. It didn't protect me from consequences. It didn't make me a hero. But staying silent would have broken something in me. And that's the part no one warns you about. The cost you pay quietly, over time, when you teach yourself to ignore your own instincts. I won't do that again. Not for comfort. Not for approval. Not for peace that isn't real. Some stories don't end with justice. They end with clarity. And sometimes, that's enough.